All right, just getting set up here to start to put a little work into these front fenders. I had to do some preliminary stuff to get set up for that. One of the things I had to do was I had to finish out that front bracket, get it painted, welded up, and it's in there now, reinstalled. Put the bumper back on. I still have to bolt it in, and had to do some fooling around, get better alignment on these fender tops that I started with a while ago. They weren't quite lined up with the door just right, but I went around and did some adjustment on the bolt-up points. There's some bolt attachments here, and then down here that had to be that have been manipulated a little bit to get this thing where it needed to be in order for it to line up with all of this nonsense over here. Over here is a temporary stop that goes up to here to a cleco that holds the top of this quarter in place at the right height. Now underneath this area over here, I'm having the normal bolt up on the Challenger fender is these two bolt holes right here. But as you can see, my rocker, it comes in at a different height and also a different angle. So what I've had to do is, let me see if I've got it over here. Yep, there it is. I've had to come up with this bracket. What this does is these two holes bolt up to the original holes that retain the fender bottom, and this little flange here with some captured 1/4-20 nuts will actually point in this direction. In other words, this goes up the rocker, and then this over here creates that new rocker bottom for the bottom of the fender. So I'll bolt that in, so that gives me a start point for that. Over here are two brackets that are in the Challenger that there's like a little piece of sheet metal with a fork on it, and a bolt goes through here, and what you can do is you can loosen this and you can move the fender, in and out to tune it up to get it flush. There are two of them. There's one down here. Now this one, because this profile is so much bigger in this area, I had to flip it around so that I could, when the door opens, it would hit this bracket, because it was flipped in this direction originally, because the Challenger profile is flatter in this area. So this is flipped around now to where I can bolt it in from this face instead of from the back face. I put a little plastic spacer in here because this is just a press depression in the tab, as you can see right here, and then it's threaded. So I'll be hitting it from the back side. So I just wanted to make sure that when I put my attachment on there that it lays flush. So I got that little spacer on there. So that's where we're headed right now. Been undoing a lot of stuff that I did with a better perspective of how everything's going to fit. Hindsight is 20/20 on a project like this that's going as slow as it is. You use that to your advantage to make corrections before you get too far along, and hopefully there won't be too many missteps from here on out. These fenders are going to be tough. I wanted to get use the same shape from a couple of quarter panels skins that I bought. This shape over here, I have to get it a whole lot higher than I really want to for a visual, based on the fact that these tires, when they steer out, they're going to hit those fenders big time. So I'm going to be doing a little dance with the look and then the functionality of how these fenders are going to work. So hopefully it won't be too hideous, and we'll get through the whole mess without too much of a problem. So anyway, that's what I'm up to right now. So believe it or not, part of getting back to the front fenders on this car involves doing a final commitment to this front roll pan and getting it back on the car, because these left and right areas are the corners that go around and connect to the front fenders. So this has to be in place. Also, I'm working on getting the front bumper brackets and everything finished up, so I can get that hung back in place over top of this once it's put back on the car. I'm going to try to hang this back on the car and establish this lower grille opening once and for all. We'll see how that goes. While I'm waiting for the upper brackets that I just built for the bumper that go in the middle section here to dry, I'm painting them, welded them, and did some captured nuts and a bunch of other nonsense to them. Finally locating the bumper in its final location. While I'm waiting for those to dry, I decided to go ahead and start planning my lower grille opening and where my road lights are going to go in this lower valance. And the reason I'm doing that now is I've got a clear shot to take a look on the inside here as to where there might be any interference with this bumper bar on these projectors out here. If there's any issues as far as once I put the housing in and how it's going to plug in, and make sure that I don't have any interference or I'll lock myself in. And also I want to make sure that once it's clear, that visually it looks good. On the Dodge Daytona that I built, I made a little discovery about these road lights. These are the Chrysler lights. They're pretty ubiquitous and they're not that expensive, but they even come with a bulb in them. And you can see up here it's got an adjuster for the pitch angle of the lens, so you can adjust your road lights. But these usually fit in the lower corners of the Chargers. I guess they're the same place on the Challengers. I really haven't noticed. But anyway, this is a 4.5 inch outside diameter. It's just a PVC sewer pipe, and I'm going to use this as I use this stuff as a housing for this, and making the housing to hold this on the back side of the valance. As you can see here, it's a pretty good fit. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll use this as a mock-up to get my locations. It'll have to be cut on an angle, and this will have to be recessed, of course. The lower edge will be here, and then the roll pan will come up away from it, so it's going to have to be pointed on the top here on the back side. But anyway, I'm using this long piece to mock up where these road lights are going to go on the bottom of the pan, and later on I have some cleaner stuff that I'm going to use to make the actual housings from. This is some old garbage I had laying around. But anyway, a little detour here while I wait for the paint to dry. Real quick tip on how to get a center line on a piece of tubing, no matter what size. Just laying on the table, and I've got a level right here, and I'm just going to draw a line right across here, and that'll give me a line right down the center of the pipe. Depending on the size of the tube, you can take smaller and smaller pieces and lay them up against the tube. It doesn't really matter whether or not this is in the actual center of this tube. I'm just looking for a straight line as a reference point, so it doesn't really matter how tall this is, as long as it can lay up against there and give me a nice straight line right across there. It'll give me a beginning to be able to make a reference spot as far as measuring around it. Once I measure around it, I'll be able to mark the other side. I'm going to flip it over and mark it along those lines after I split that dimension in half, and that'll give me a reliable source for a top and a bottom. And if I need to, I can split it again to get marks that would give it a cross hatch, or a crosshair, I should say, if you're trying to center up a round object or an oval shaped object on a surface like I'm trying to do over here. It's always good to have the exact top and the exact bottom marked on whatever, and it helps you locate it and keeps it from getting pivoted and looking funny. Now to get the circumference and to be able to split the circumference, instead of trying to wrap a measuring tape around here, which is going to be, unless you have like a sewing tape, which is, you know, a cloth tape or something along that order, a regular you know, standard tape measure is going to fold up on you and make a bunch of facets. So just wrap it with some tape, and then I mark this line, and then as I overlap I mark this line, then I'll take this tape off and I'll just lay it along this table here, and then I'll get the length. That'll give me exactly what I need as far as splitting the difference, as far as so I can get another mark on the exact opposite side. Once I do get that measurement, I'll put another mark on the same piece of tape, and I'll just lay it back on this piece, and it should survive long enough just to give me a mark on the dead opposite side of this tube. Okay, so you can see that I have this line is for the height, approximately, and then there's a vertical line over here, and I've tried to generally line this line up and then this line up, and now I want to get this profile. So what I've done is I've got just a set of like a compass, an old compass, and I just taped a magic marker to it, and then what I'll do is I'll run this against this profile here, and then mark all the way down and get my profile, and then of course that'll be a little bit rough, and then as I get that generally cut out, I'll move it in a little bit at a time, and either remark it a little closer. Sometimes once you get it close enough, you can just take the marker itself, keeping it level, and run around the shape like this, using the marker as the consistent spacing, and that'll get you a whole lot closer once I get this general shape cut in here. All I'm trying to do here right now is create a situation where I can move this up against this so that I can get the shape of this oval. Now this is going to be a little bit too big, obviously. It's the inside diameter that I want, but this will get me a general location, and I know that this is a 1/4 inch wall, so my actual hole will be about a 1/4 inch smaller than that, but that's down the road here. I'm just trying to get a design concept here to see the placement, and see if the placements. So I could move these lines, move this line up, move this over, and remark this, and just continually stand back and see if this is where I really want to commit to. But this will give me, it's clamped to a body stand, as you can see right here. I've got it up to the level of the where I need it, and it'll give me an idea. It'll give me a good device to be able to project that shape onto this irregular surface time and time again, and until I get it where I want it. Okay, well, this shows you what I was talking about. It's generally the shape. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for me to be able to mark the proper oblong shape, following this pattern. And this, so you can see this bullseye that I've got drawn here gives me a location which I can move depending on how this sights up, and it'll enable me to locate these road lights a little bit more accurately just by moving them around until they seem to look right to my eye, and hopefully they'll look right to everybody else's eye by the time I'm done here. This will also give me a good starting point for, on the opposite side, actually making the housing out of this material. This gives me a beginning of a shape, which I'll refine this. I'll sand this down and make it fit really good. That'll give me the exact opposite shape that I'll need on the reverse side when I bring the housing in from the other side, and then, you know, attach it to the back side of this roll pan to receive the road lights. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I use the cutoff, the opposite end, to be able to trace the inside of the actual dimension of what the hole will be, and I've got it traced onto a piece of black construction paper so that I have something to put up there to look at and visualize. The black against the bare metal will give me a nice contrast, and I'll be able to see it really well. But this inside dimension, now you can see the oval shape that it creates. When this is level to the world, this is the oval shape that's actually cut into the roll pan. Okay, so that's pretty much what I was after. Mocked up the grill opening, and pretty happy with the first shot out of the cannon. again, I just used the drawings that were the way it was designed by Doug Schramm to kind of look at it, see where he had them placed. They look good there, and I just kind of eyeballed them into the same locations, and hopefully have enough clearance in the background behind there with the bumper structure to clear those two housings, and I can mash on. But I've been wondering about that for a little while, and I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so this is the new brackets that I just finished up to retain the upper part of the bumper. I had these independent straps tying in the front to rear of the two separate radiator cores, but I needed something to go across here the whole length. I had some tabs on there, and they were real wonky. They didn't really want to do what I wanted them to do. They didn't look very good, and they were all out of alignment. So I ended up creating this flat piece, and then I have this little bent piece that's bent at the angle that the bumper comes down on top of it. Some captured nuts here, right here, and here, and here. Also, there's ones on these corner brackets now, so that it's bolted about 6 places across the front of the upper bumper, and so that's where I am with that. Okay, so this is the bumper secured at the top through the back into those captured nuts that I was telling you about, all the way along here, all the way to the other end. So it's both tied in at the bottom rail and centered up, and it's pretty sturdy here. No shaking going on. So it's a good solid spot to start with. Go back and start doing the fenders. As you can see, I had to cut this fender top off over here that I had already put on, because once I tightened up the headlights, got them in the right exact position, and they were rigid, I had to shift this bumper around a little bit, probably about 3/16 of an inch, up, down, change the height of the tops of the fenders by about that same amount. So that's where we're at right now.